Hey everybody! So shout out to Bhutan, or Bhutan. Is it Bhutan? Um, so in the last 7 days, they have been my number one geography, which is just so cool, you know. And then India's number two, and United States are tied for two and three. And then New Zealand is right behind. So we got the Kiwis in there too. So that's pretty cool. I think so. At first, what happened when I started looking at this data, I thought that the all the rest were like kind of spread out through the rest of the world. But now I think all the rest are people that have in like YouTube have said, no, I don't want. I want to have like strict privacy, and also people who maybe are through VPNs where they can't really determine where they're from. And so basically, like right now, it looks like about 12% of the people who come and watch my videos that I make are are like trackable. And then maybe there's like some like if cause so like in the last week there was 256 people that came and looked at the videos. And I got 7 new subscriber, which I think is about normal. Like I know almost every day I see that number go up by one. So I have like 88 subscribers. So it's gonna be pretty cool. And hopefully like about 2 weeks I'll be at 100 subscribers, and that's a neat thing. And then of the 256, 20 of them are returning. So 236 are that. And so anyways, yeah, so that's pretty cool. It's neat because I looked up Bhutan, and it looks like a really neat country. Um, it's like kind of next to China. It's a Buddhist country. It looks absolutely beautiful. Um, Probably kind of like where I grew up in New Mexico because it was very mountainy where I grew up, and it looked kind of like that. Um, that's cool. I bet you my biggest number is probably United States. It's just that uh, everyone here in the States, we're all starting to get really paranoid about um, being tracked. And so, like, a lot of people are using VPNs now and kind of have all their settings um, lockdown. I mean, just here in the States, we're just having a lot of weird experiences. I think almost everybody sort of had the experience of like being in a very, very vulnerable state and then like everything just going sideways. And it's kind of like, and then there are promote reports of it happening, like of companies doing that. Like there are reports that like if you get like a ride sharing and your battery's low, then they'll raise the prices. Or if it's late at night, they'll raise the prices. Or if you're in a very dangerous area or you're in a very dangerous situation, they'll raise the prices. Um, I noticed that when I was interviewing before, if I ever said in LinkedIn, and I probably shouldn't call out LinkedIn, but if I ever said in like some social media, because I don't think LinkedIn is doing this, but I do think that people are getting the data and they're doing this. But like if I would ever type in to anything really, not just LinkedIn, but like any social media, oh, I'm having an interview at 10 o'clock, I could almost guarantee that my phone and my email and everything would just start blowing up like a minute before the interview. It was just weird. So I think everybody is, I think that that's why we probably get such a low United States number, is because I think most Americans are pretty paranoid about their data right now. I know that there's like a lot of legislation going in, and there's a lot of concerns by our lawmakers that there are a lot of bad actors taking advantage of us through our data right now. But, anyways, I didn't mean to go all dark on that. I do definitely, truly appreciate Bhutan. I think this is their colors. It's kind of funny because, like, on the laptop that I'm looking at, these colors don't look right. But when I look up on my monitor where it's showing this um, the colors do look right, and if I have this on there, the colors look right. So, anyways, they have just an absolutely beautiful flag. It's like an orange and a yellow, and it's really gorgeous. Anyways, welcome. Thank you. I'm honored that you guys have come, and everybody else too. Um, but anyways, so last time what we did was basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to um, divide up. So basically, there's like the way this application is set up is all the ThreeJS stuff is sort of separated, isolated from everything else, and I call that ThreeJS service. Well, ThreeJS service is probably too broad of a term at this point. You know, when the application was first built, it made a lot of sense because there wasn't a lot of ThreeJS stuff, but now it's growing, and we're at about 768 lines of code. We were up over, I think we were early, like before I started making these services, we were over 1,000. And at just a general frame of reference, I don't try not to go over 1,000 lines on a service. Um, and this one had kind of started to approach that area, but it also just makes things a lot easier. It's easier to maintain discipline. Um, when you have things divided out, like it just jumps right out. Like if I'm in the animation service and I'm wanting something that's inside the mesh service or vice versa, I know, okay, no, these things probably need to go through the ThreeJS service. It also, yeah, there's just a lot of reasons. It's just easier to organize things. Um, and then, like if the mesh service were to start approaching 1,000 lines, then I'd say, okay, like let's try to break that down into smaller pieces. Like maybe text stuff would all go in its own area, and maybe just anyways. Yeah, 1,000 lines seems to be about the right place to do that. So I moved the add mesh over. Um, I was hoping to be like some mesh stuff. I was able to just grab as a whole and move it over. But the add mesh, I had to just, since the add mesh gets called directly from the components, I needed to move its guts over into a new thing. And the way I accomplished that was by copying the whole thing, going over, making it where it could compile, and just kind of just it was sort of a stream of consciousness sort of event. It just wasn't. It was pretty chaotic, and it's probably going to do that again with update mesh. Update mesh, I believe, gets called from directly. If it doesn't, then we're in really great shape. But I'm pretty sure it gets called directly from the components. So okay, so I have another one called update mesh for time that's inside of the animation service. That is not the one we care about. So yeah, so the mesh manager does call the update mesh directly. So I do still need to have this exposed, but I want to bring the majority of it into um, the mesh service. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to just pull this entire thing out, and it's kind of nice because this one um, does not return uh, anything. It just returns a void, a promise, an empty promise, basically. Um, yeah, story of my life. No. So, uh, anyways, yeah. So mesh service. So I'm gonna go back into there, and I'm just gonna paste the whole thing. Now there are definitely things within mesh services, behaviors within mesh services that I wouldn't want in here. And basically anything that has anything to do with the animation service, that really needs to stay in the original. Um, so it needs to stay in the ThreeJS service. The mesh service should sort of be isolated from. Uh, it should just kind of only be where it should only focus on its own concerns. It shouldn't do anything. It also shouldn't publish anything. And that's just a personal rule that I just made up on the fly. Like, I just want all publishes coming out of the ThreeJS services. And I think main reason is I think down the line I'll probably move all publishing and subscribe or that kind of thing into like a state service. But that's probably a good while down the line. So I'm just going to comment that out because I don't want this. Now, this let me close this up. So now this is sort of rework. These properties have been moved into this service. So And now I've moved this function into the service, so there's no reason to do that. So it's all happy. It's all happy. Everything's pretty. So this seems to be a lot better than the ad. The ad had all kinds of sort of interactions. Yeah, so this makes sense to get text geometry. We moved into this service yesterday, so that makes sense. Let's keep on going. And mesh service. I'm just going to leave these comments in there for now. I don't know if we want that. So there we go. This is no longer in the, this is no longer has to be, this is now in this because we are in the mesh service. So, man, this one went a lot easier than yesterday's. So that is all that seems to need to stay over here. So now what I need to do is go back to the ThreeJS service and sort of do the exact reverse. So I need to call the I need to call the update service and give it this mesh item so that it could do all the things it needs to do to update the mesh item, right? So let's look back at that. Let's just double check that that's what happens. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of these for now. It should be fine. So basically all this does when you do the update, all it does is, yeah, all it does is modify the value. It doesn't actually do anything else. Now this, just so you know, this down here is some extra code that needs to be done just so that the mesh, to change the address that the mesh items array exists at. And the only reason you have to do that is because when you go to publish, the publisher will only publish if it believes that the data has changed, and the only way it knows if the data has changed is if the address of the array or object has changed. And that's a bummer, right? That's kind of a bummer. It's just kind of a side effect of the way JavaScript was architected. But anyways, yeah, so nothing happens to anything except the mesh item in here. This just comes in and just does a bunch of decoration changes to the mesh item. So let's go back to the ThreeJS service. And we're just going to say, update mesh. Well, see, the update mesh is not the mesh item. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay, but it handles finding. So this is the actual ThreeJS mesh. So I don't think so we're doing that over there. And so I think all we need to do is like, okay, so we're just going to call that. I want to call it down here though, right before we do all of our animation stuff. So right there is the beginning of where we were making our changes. And I'm just going to say, can I just do, I think I can just say await this dot mesh service dot update mesh, and I believe it's just takes the mesh item. So this just saying, hey, call this and wait for it to come back. And then I don't think we need anything from this line 561, to the very first line of this function. I don't think we need 425. So I'm just going to hold the shift button down, click up here, and hit the control and the /, and that's going to make them all commented. All right, so it is not happy about that. And that's because it does not have the update mesh anymore. Okay, it looks like I still need to pull that out. So there's a list of meshes and ThreeJS meshes, and this finds that list from this finds the one that we're going to be manipulating, and returns and stores it. Um, and see, that's an interesting question. It's like, where else does this update mesh get used? Yeah, so we use it a lot. Okay, so basically, there's the mesh item, which is a mesh interface, which just is describes the mesh. It's a mesh. It's a light mesh that I use just for my own, so that I'm not trying to carry around this big overweight mesh object. Um, and it has paid off, because there are some things that the mesh object doesn't store that I need, um, and the TypeScript won't let me just add it on, like you would with typical JavaScript. Um, but the update mesh is the ThreeJS's version of it. So that when you actually operate on the update mesh, you're actually operating on the item that's on the screen. Um, so, anyways, so we use that. Okay, so now mesh item. So this checks to see if it's animated and does stuff. This seems like it's good. It's good. And I think that was too easy. It's too easy. Okay, so I'm just going to select that and delete it. Really, I just fingers crossed. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I hope so. Um, a lot of times programming is just a lot more of an art than a science. Um, then text. Yeah, that seemed to work. Everything seems to be fine. And then -4. Yeah, there we go. And that was easy. It was way easier than add. So that's that. So I have delete mesh, and I think that's it. Yeah, delete mesh needs to move over. Um, and that, I guess that's the difference, is the scene. See, the first thing this does is it removes it from the scene, which isn't the scene isn't part of the mesh. It's part of is so that's something that needs to be handled in the ThreeJS service. So like if you imagine we have a scene, we have like some code that handles all meshes. We have code that handles all animations. There will be code for scenes that will be separate, and they really shouldn't interact with each other. Anything that needs to happen between those needs to come from the ThreeJS service, the centralized service. So since this needs to interact with the scene, it belongs in the ThreeJS service. But see, like this probably needs to go over into the, well, let's see. And see, this is the publisher. This is what's publishing, so that needs to happen over here. Let's see this mesh items. Okay, so this actually removes the mesh item from that. So this actually needs to happen over in the service. And then this animation stuff needs to happen over here. Prune animation pairs needs to happen over here. And then this is another publish. So literally the only line that needs to move over there is this guy. And that does make sense. Like for the mesh, when I say, hey, go ahead and delete a mesh, for the animation service, all it's doing is deleting the mesh item. That's it. Like for the scene, like the mesh that's sitting in the scene, that also needs to be removed, but it doesn't need to be removed. But it's interacting with the scene, so it doesn't. It's not like the mesh knows nothing of the scene. It's not part of its sort of orbit of concerns. It doesn't care about the scene or know of it. It shouldn't know about it. Um, so yeah, so yeah, moving delete the delete tomorrow should be pretty straightforward. So yeah, happy coding, everybody. Bye.